What's going on, traders? Andrew O'Connell here with Pristine Capital. Welcome to your market recap video. It's September 29th of 2022. Oh my gosh, the market giveth and the market taketh away. We mentioned yesterday, hey, this VIX futures term structure, it's still inverted, so we are still in the eye of the storm. And this is really just what can happen when you're stuck in the storm. S&P 500 finished down 2.09% for the session. Our NASDAQ QQQ finished down 2.88%. Our IWM small caps down 2.24%. Dogs of the Dow were laggards to the downside. They were only down 1.52%. Our ARK Innovation ETF was a big winner yesterday and was the big loser for today, down 5.48%. We did see, I'll call them capitulatory moves in both Tesla and Apple. Pretty much all these indices, they closed somewhere towards the middle end of their day's range. IWM had the best closing range at 56.4%. We had an expansion of volatility across the board. Small cap advancers were at 13%. Our total up volume is at 12.6%. And the trend model flipped from a -1 to a -3. Let's take a look. This is tomorrow's economic data to keep a watchful eye out for. We have initial jobless claims, or this was actually today's data, excuse me. We had initial jobless claims. This came in at 193,000 versus a consensus expectation of 215,000. And basically, what does that mean? It means, hey, there was an expectation that 215,000 Americans were going to lose their jobs. We only had 193,000 Americans that lost their jobs. For this market, where the Federal Reserve is trying to induce a recession, which is like mind-boggling that they're doing that, this was actually bad news. You know, people are seeing this, oh man, not enough Americans lost their jobs. Now that means we need to tighten more. And so that is, a negative for the market. Our GDP price index came out, GDP growth rate. These are kind of, I think these were kind of non-events for the market. And then, of course, we had our litany of Fed speakers. They're all kind of, speaking the same language, humming the same tune, whatever you want to call it. They're all just kind of repeating the same message. So tomorrow's economic data. Tomorrow is Friday, TGIF. It is also, tomorrow's going to be a barn burner. We got month end, quarter end, and the PCE data. So we have personal income and personal spending. Those are out at 8:30 a.m. Again, we're in this bad news is good news environment. If the plebs, don't have good income, like, oh yeah, this is great news. Like, we're going into recession. Awesome. So that can be perceived well, and vice versa. Is PCE data. So here's the nuance. This is August data. And we already got the August CPI. We already got the August PPI. Both of those came in hotter than expected. When the CPI came out, the market had a very nice rally into the number. I think everyone thought that it was going to come out lighter than expected. It was going to show a deceleration in inflation. That was actually my expectation as well. And it really shocked everyone where it was like, oh my gosh, we got an acceleration this month. That led us to this leg down in the market that we've been experiencing. We're like, oh my gosh, we've just had so many down days in a row. In total, today was day 31 of this sell-off. Now, heading into this PCE number, I think the setup is a little bit different. And now everyone is expecting a really high number. Now everyone is hedged. Now everyone is already panicked. Everyone in their mind knows that there's no way this number could be good. So I actually think there's, a chance that if this market just comes out as bad as everyone expects, there could be some relief in the market. Of course, with the way pretty much it's been like a Murphy's Law market, everything that can go wrong will go wrong. If this just comes out way hotter than expected, even though, again, it's August data, we've already been reacting to the August data. Perhaps just because everyone's in a panic state, they get this PCE and they freak out once again. We have Brainerd speaking tomorrow. We've got Mester, Williams, Bowman, and then Williams again. Geez, so these guys are really just getting their 15 minutes of fame team. But yeah, the PCE is definitely going to be the most important. And then for month end and quarter end, there's just a lot of rebalancing flows that are going through the market. There's probably hedge funds that are going belly up, investment managers that are just like cleaning up their portfolio into the end of the quarter. There's a lot of performance incentives that are calculated based off of each quarter. So tomorrow is certainly a wild card. And again, our VIX futures term structure, it's still inverted. So this means that we are still in the eye of the storm. We did have someone comment on the video yesterday. First of all, thank you so much for the comment. all the feedback that you guys can give me on these videos, it's very appreciated. Any like that you can put on the video, that's very appreciated as well. Someone asked, hey, so does this mean that you think the market is bottoming? I do think that as soon as this VIX futures term structure uninverts, I think that's where it's very safe. You know, that's where you have like a low risk entry point. If you are waiting for this thing to uninvert before getting long, are you going to catch the very bottom of the market? No, you're not going to catch the very bottom, but that actually is a pretty good spot. So I think if you're a viewer and you're like, man, I just don't know where to add some exposure, like this is all just way over my head. I've already added exposure. I'm long the market. But I think if you've been more conservative, I think that's a good line in the sand where you can be like, all right, as soon as this gets in a normal condition, you know, I'll go ahead and that's where I'll feel comfortable. Let's take a look here. Finviz heat map. We had a huge down day. Tesla was down 6.81%. Apple capitulated, down 4.91%. Of course, we got that production news the other day. This stock got hit with 2 analyst downgrades. And to be honest, this was like one of the last bastions of hope in the market. Stocks that really hadn't been hit since the June lows. So today I was just looking at the market and I was like, can I point to any group within the market that has not been decimated? Now with Apple and Tesla getting decimated today, I would say officially everything has been hit. Today the solar energy stocks got hit as well. That had been a group that was really holding out. So yeah, I think that's another lesson where like if you're in a really weak tape, trying to hide out in some of these areas that are showing relative strength could actually be an ineffective strategy, because essentially what you're doing is like you're going to where the sell-off, quote unquote, puck is going. So it's like you're putting yourself in that situation where you're getting into the stocks that haven't been hit. In this case, pretty much everything got hit. Let's take a look at our sectors. As you can see, worst performers today. We had KWEB down 4.55%. We have the TAN Solar ETF down 5.25%. Rocked. We had the ARK Innovation ETF down 5.48%. Gold miners did finish out positive. They were up 0.47%. Style factors. We saw the high beta style factor finish out the worst. This was a positive that we had seen the past couple days. Oh my gosh, high beta diverging a little bit. Now these names, they've really just got whacked. In terms of trades, all I did today was I got long the small cap September 30th 168 calls for 96 cents. And I added these when the small caps were down maybe like 2.8% on the day. And it's been very difficult to play on the long side. I'm not going to lie. Like, you know, this has been a ruthless market. It's been pretty much a one-way market. Aside from the last couple days, once we started to see like, oh my gosh, retail investors are hedged up to their eyeballs. If you'll notice, when was that? That was Friday at the close we found that out. Has the market really had much downside from the 26th to today? Let's see, where's the 26th? So on Friday we closed out, let's just use the small caps for an example. At around like 1688, we find out, oh my gosh, every retail investor's hedged up to their eyeballs. And where are we right now? We're still at 1688. So I do believe, you know, I'm a speculator. And I think that there's way more asymmetry on the upside rather than the downside, just because so many investors have been washed out. Again, tomorrow's going to be day 32 of the sell-off. I think if you're a short-term trader, there's that case, like, let me just go with the trend. The trend is to the downside. I totally get that. And I think, you know, if you've been doing that, you've probably been doing pretty well. But like, if you're on any sort of longer-term perspective, like the risk reward's definitely getting better, you know, at these levels. You can see we're getting some decent action after hours. Let's take a look. S&P 500. We did not undercut the lows from yesterday, so you know, it's a little positive perhaps. And this 5-day EMA, it is coming down to price. Pretty much throughout this entire sell-off, we really have not been able to close above that 5-day EMA, so that is becoming an easier hurdle to clear. We are putting this basing pattern in. If PCE just goes horrible, which, you know, there's definitely that potential as well. We have a VPOC down here at 35.55. That's a good level to watch. And perhaps, you know, maybe if you've been very prudent, if we pull back to that level, maybe that's where you add a test trade, something of that nature. Let's take a look at the NASDAQ. This one, you know, definitely got hit very hard given that Apple was leading the downside as well as Tesla. the NASDAQ actually undercut yesterday's low. And then the Dow Jones, this was a relative outperformer. I don't think this one undercut today. Yeah, this one did not undercut either. Let's take a look at what the ARK Innovation ETF did. This one is practically like an index that I track as well. But yeah, the ARK Innovation ETF, we actually, yesterday was an incredible bounce. Did we undercut the low from 2 days ago? Yep, we did. We undercut it. We closed slightly above it. And I think the jury is still out here. Let's take a look at our VIX. We'll take a look at the dollar as well. Let's actually take a look at the dollar first. So remember, the major problem in the market was that the dollar index is going on a parabolic move, the dollar wrecking ball. And once the Bank of England capitulated, they said, hey, we're going to do QE. I noticed that's really when the dollar just started to come off a bit. It was very good to see that the dollar continued to sell off today. That's fantastic. And this is one of the big macro headwinds that was behind the market. So if we continue to see this weak dollar, that is another tailwind. The other thing too, you see how I have over here seasonality bearish? That is because September is just a dreadful month seasonality wise. Once we get into October, I am going to be flipping this to a bullish reading. So we're going to have that as a tailwind as well. But that's going to be beginning in 2 trading sessions. So yeah, I think tomorrow is the big risk. I think if these perma bears want to bring us down, I think tomorrow is going to be their best shot at it. We've got inflation data. That's what everyone's freaking out about, right? It is month end. It's quarter end. It's been a horrible quarter. Perhaps some of these guys just throw in the towel last day of the quarter. I think tomorrow is really like the big day. All right, let's take a look. That was the dollar. Let's check out our 30-year Treasury futures. This is pretty big as well. And these started washing out to the downside today, and I was like, oh, brother. But they ended up having, I don't want to say it's a strong close, but they did make a higher low for the day. And you can see it looks like there's a little bit of strength in the after hours here. Not too shabby. So I would say the positives, dollar index continued to sell off today. And treasuries, although they did give some back, they didn't give back all of their progress. So I'd say those are 2 like very glass half full kind of events. But equities really just puked, with Apple and Tesla. Apple, let's take a look at that one. Apple did hit this Venom S1 pivot. And you can see we took out this VPOC the other day. And yeah, Apple, it's also, if you pull up Bollinger Bands, it traded all the way down to the 3 standard deviation Bollinger Band. And typically we bounce once we get to around that area. But yeah, Apple, before it was like let's say when Apple was at like 165, it's like, man, this thing hasn't even gotten hit yet. There's no way the sell-off's over. Like, Apple's got to tank first. Now, we're at 142.48. It's not like we're at the June lows. But, I mean, if this is the best performer out of, like, pretty much the whole group, and it's, like, almost retraced down to the lows, again, like, I just think a lot of these areas of the market, they definitely got, really cooked to the downside. So I do think all we need is, like, some little bit of positive news, and the trend could really flip around in short order. Let's take a look here as well. We had the dollar. We had our bonds. We took a look at Apple. Let's also take a look at Tesla. This was another one that, had really not been hit yet for all intents and purposes. Tesla ended up, just failing at the bottom of this monthly value area. Horrible red candle as well today. So nothing has really been spared. I do think there's a lot of investors that are just kind of like resigned to like, yeah, the market will never go up again. When you start hearing people say like, oh yeah, it's never going to go up again, things of that nature, and then you start to see like positioning is super, super low, that's where you should really be perking up and just being like, hey, I need to make sure that I'm continuing to do my homework and just continuing to be vigilant. So best of luck out there tomorrow, everyone. Whether the market goes up or down, like I would just say like, maintain your composure. I know people are getting like really strung out. Like, when's this going to end? And you just have to be patient. So yeah, best of luck. We'll see you all next time.